I saw this story. You're not going to see it in corporate media. You probably won't see it in most places. But finally, after many years of fighting for this, the Amber Alert system is now in effect for Navajo Nation. As we know, the original sin of the United States of America is we killed the Native Americans, we stole their land, and pretty much we've been occupying their land ever since. As you know, I'm very passionate about indigenous issues. One of the stories I want to go cover with the GoFundMe, which I'm going to reach out to the tribe and see if they'd be interested. I want to go to Montana, and I want to go interview and speak with members of the Fort Peck Sioux tribe, because they are starting construction on the Keystone pipeline very soon, right? First in Montana. That will be the first state they're starting construction in the United States. It goes from Canada through Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota. We, as opposed to Standing Rock, there was a lot of great journalism that went on Standing Rock. Obviously, I was there as much as I could be, 7 times with the Young Turks. But unfortunately, the majority of the cameras and the majority of the attention came after the pipeline was half built. And I think it's important for the journalism to start before construction starts, when you could start getting the attention on the threat of these pipelines, of the disproportionate, disastrous effect it's going to have for indigenous people and poor people in these areas. They're not routing these pipelines through wealthy white cities and towns, trust me. So that's one of the first places I would like to go with the contributions. You're helping support us. We want to get out there and we want to expose and spotlight the people that are going to be affected by this, in addition to all the illegal things that TransCanada is already doing. It ain't just Energy Transfer Partners that's breaking laws, folks. TransCanada is too. They're blowing off permitting and many other things. So that's one of the stories on my wish list that I'd like to go chase in person. So Ty and I are ready to go. We just need a little bit more funding so we can go there. After that, my strong preference, if things are going on, is to go down to Dallas. I think it is a grave injustice what happened to Botham Jean, a 26-year-old African-American who was shot and killed by a white police officer. She has finally been fired, but it took a while, and she has only been charged with manslaughter, not murder. Botham Jean, who sadly was killed, his girlfriend led a protest last week. There's no media covering this. There's no media covering down there. This is a grave injustice. This is a police officer who literally intruded on a black man's apartment, invaded his apartment and shot him dead. If you don't call that murder, then we don't have a criminal justice system in this country. She should be in jail awaiting trial. But she's not, because she's a police officer and she's white. So I would like to go cover that. There's a lot of things I want to go cover. So keep it coming, whether GoFundMe or Super Chat. So the Amber Alert system has now extended to Navajo Nation. Before, the Amber Alert system, where you get a little alert, in a lot of cases on your phone, when children go missing, did not extend to missing Native American children in Navajo Nation. So it's something public safety advocates have called on for years, and now it's become a reality. An Amber Alert system has finally come to Navajo Nation 2 years after a high-profile tragedy. Quote, we would have had a greater chance in finding my daughter, said Pamela Foster. 2 years ago, Foster lived every parent's worst nightmare. Her daughter, 11-year-old Ashlyn Mike, was kidnapped, raped, and strangled in what the FBI called one of the worst tragedies to ever hit Navajo Nation. Quote, we don't want that to ever happen again, said Vice President of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez. Mike's killer was sentenced to life in prison, but the case exposed a major gap in the Amber Alert system. Even though the incident took place at the Arizona-New Mexico border, an alert was delayed and was only issued in New Mexico. However, a new federal law named for Mike provides federal funding to expand the system to tribal lands and improve communication. Quote, jurisdiction can pretty much get in the way for the well-being of our people, especially in Indian country. So a meeting like today will help us, Nez said. Earlier this week, local public safety officials and tribal leaders held a meeting at Fort McDowell to discuss ways to implement the new system and better share information. Quote, it is a monumental conference for us. For the tribes to get this technology is extremely powerful, said Arizona's Director of Homeland Security, Gil Orrantia. Arizona area tribes are trained on the technology and discussed how to better collaborate with outside agencies. That's often complicated because the Navajo Nation spans 4 states and is considered a sovereign nation. Organizers say the goal is to make communities safer by making connections that never existed before. That's what we're aiming to do, is to have an alert system in place that protect our families and especially our children, said Jessica Delmar, the director of the Navajo Division of Public Safety. The Navajo system is currently live and spans 13 counties in 3 states, Delmar said. Officials admit, however, that they have much work to do. For now, they say they're on a path that hopefully avoids another tragedy. Quote, "I am here with her, and in spirit she is with me," Foster said about her daughter. So, I mean, a rare, good story when it comes to indigenous people and doing right by indigenous people. K7607, I can't take anyone seriously who furthers the Russiagate narrative. Just donated $25 via the Status Quo website. Thank you for your work, Jordan. Thank you, Kay. I've called it like I see it on Russiagate. I think it's much to do about nothing. And let's talk about the interference in our election by the friggin' oligarchy, buying off our elections and our politicians. So, this is a good first step, Amber Alerts, but it's not enough just that we have Amber Alerts for indigenous people. We got to call out the corporate media. When's the last time you've seen extensive coverage in the corporate media about missing indigenous girls or boys? Missing black boys or girls? Last time, never. I remember, I'm probably one day going to write a book about my time at Fox News, but my internship at Fox News in 2005, before I realized, I wasn't into politics at the time, so I didn't know I was joining the Republican National Committee. Literally the whole summer was Natalie Holloway. And I feel terrible for her family, and nice, beautiful young woman who was killed, and we don't know where she ended up. All summer for a beautiful white young girl. You ever see Amber Alert? You ever see coverage of kidnapped Native American women? I don't. You ever see coverage of kidnapped black children? I don't. You ever see whether kidnapped or missing? I don't. So on one end, the Amber Alert system for the Navajo Nation is a very big step in the right direction, and that's why I'm reporting on it today. But the media plays a huge, huge role in finding missing children. And they say the most important day, the most important time period is the first 24 hours. So it's great to have an Amber Alert system that extends to indigenous people, but maybe CNN and MSNBC, maybe the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Reports, the army of national news outlets, and frankly, local media doesn't do a good job either, can step away from Trump's tweets for 5 minutes and actually report on missing human beings, especially our children, because it could actually help find them and get leads for law enforcement. Is that radical? I know they don't give a damn about the actual children and adults getting massacred in schools. By the way, today is the 1-year anniversary of the Nevada concert. I was debating whether to do a segment on that today, but I'm going to do a segment on it tomorrow. The Nevada concert shooting that 58 people were killed. They'll do a segment or two today, and then we'll move on. Because who cares about 58 Americans getting massacred by a gunman on the 22nd floor with bazooka tanks? Who cares? So they don't care about the Americans and the children getting massacred, so why would they care about the Americans and the children missing or kidnapped? Media plays a key role. That's why I'm doing this segment. I actually monitor when indigenous children are missing. Same thing with African American children. Michael Cooper says, you just said it, report on our missing children. They don't think of minorities as one of us. I agree with you. It's a great point. Paul says, how are we ever going to handle situations if we just say, hey, they all do it? I agree. Agree with that. So, again, I'm actually currently, speaking of indigenous, trying to get in touch with the Fort Peck Indian tribe, Fort Peck Sioux and Anishinaabe, I'm mispronouncing, tribes in immediate northeast corner of Montana. That is where construction is going to be starting on the Keystone pipeline, Keystone XL pipeline, end of this year, early next year. I believe we need to get out there now, before construction starts and before this train has left too far against the station. It's great for media to get down there when there's water protectors and encampments, but now is the time to make a big difference. Media can spotlight and expose this grave threat, the black snake, as the indigenous and the environmental activists call it. It's important to get media on the ground. Most media won't go because they're lazy. They don't want to go to Montana or North Dakota or South Dakota in the cold, and they don't think they'll get clicks out of it. I don't give a shit about any of that. It's not about clicks. It's about real reporting and hopefully doing reporting that could awaken the masses to actually stop it. Keystone Pipeline was stopped once. It can be stopped again. Now is the time to do it. So I would like to go there. I need your help to do it. Let's see where we're at before I go today. We just hit 6,500 and 100 people. That's what I said I wanted by the end of today's live stream. You guys made it happen.